Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the news. You know, V-shaped economic recoveries are possible. They're absolutely possible. But generally, a V-shaped recovery happens when the damage isn't so deep. If it's a surface level cut, it heals pretty quickly. But when you have systemic rot, what do you have? Over a decade of inflating this massive economic bubble, over a decade of garbage Keynesian economics, printing money and devaluing currency and moving away from the basic fundamentals of what real value in real money is. When money becomes just a concept, it's no longer tied to any physical gold or anything actually tangible. When you have a decade of monetary fiscal irresponsibility, and then possibly one of the most damaging economic moments in world history, I'd say, which was the liberal response across the Western world to the pandemic, the chances of a V-shaped recovery become less and less likely. And this is the stance that I've taken since the start. A lot of people think I'm crazy. But during the early days of the Biden administration, I pulled out roughly 75% of what I had invested out of the markets. Now I'm not going to go into what I've purchased, and how I've been trying to beat inflation. But I still haven't put my money back in, and I'm not qualified to give financial advice. And honestly, a lot of what I've been doing is actually been against the financial advice that I've been getting. But the reason I'm saying this, and the reason that I've done that, is because I'm just not buying it. You know, this idea that the economy has miraculously just overnight fixed itself. You know, this idea that we're on the road to recovery, and it's the greatest economic recovery in world history. Thanks to Sleepy Creepy Joe Biden. He's saved the world and the global economy. Yeah, I'm just not buying it. And I said the same thing, maybe 6 months ago, and after the last couple of months, as inflation trended downward and the economy was supposedly already on a fast track to recovery and markets were up over 10%, people pointed to the markets, pointed to jobs numbers and said, "You're crazy, man, we're back in the bull market." Well, it seems as though not exactly. Joe Biden's economic recovery is hardly a recovery at all. And the damage sustained isn't going to be healed so quickly. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how dishonest and how incompetent this administration is. Alright, folks. So take a look at the markets. I mean, just today down at 2 to 3%. The last week has been absolutely brutal, basically across the board. And again, I'm going to make the same point. The markets have not moved since Joe Biden was elected. Sleepy Creepy Joe Biden took over, and he constantly paints this picture as if he took over during a nightmare scenario, that everything was going to hell in a handbasket corn pub. Listen, Jack, I inherited the worst economy known to mankind, he keeps telling us, and he keeps claiming that he's put it on the rebound. But if we take a look at the last 2 years, markets remain stagnant, you know, little moments of up and little moments of down. Prices are once again on the rise. We're not seeing a steep decline in inflation. We're seeing continued persistent inflation. That's a really bad thing, because the real impact is on wages. Joe Biden keeps saying wages are up. Korean John Pierre says the same thing. But again, they're patting themselves on the back and promoting this talking point, but it's a flat-out lie. Here's the changes in real month wages on a month-to-month basis from April 2021 to January 2023. What do you notice is the trend? There's not a single month of positive wage growth. In other words, every single month, the American people are getting poorer and poorer. You're making less money as everything else gets more expensive. The Biden administration operates in the news of the day. Well, we got this little headline, this specific number that we can market and say, look how great things are. But that's not how the real world works. And that's why Biden, frankly, has been full of crap this entire time. It's the concept of lagging indicators. Economic turmoil doesn't happen overnight. And you don't get to just shut down the economy for 2 years, devastate supply chains, and add trillions of dollars of new money into the money supply without any consequence at all. Slowly, but surely, things are going to collapse. And I think the writing has been on the wall this entire time. And I think this right here is basically the writing. Credit card debt and household debt are at all-time highs. Interest rates are the highest they've been in over a decade. You know, initially, Jerome Powell and the Biden administration kept telling us, well, the way we see it is people have amazing savings, therefore, everything's gonna be all right. Well, how long will those savings last? If people are getting poor and falling further and further behind every single month with no end in sight? Even Barack Obama's former economic advisor is warning us, is telling us that we're not out of the woods yet. I look at tips. I look at swaps, they're got break-evens of inflation of around 2%. I just don't see that. I don't see how we have inflation much below 3%. This year, I don't see it coming down below that without a decent-sized recession. And nothing in this numbers gives me comfort. Yeah, it's not a surprise, relative to the expectations we had yesterday. But compared to the narrative we had a month ago, where we thought inflation was coming down, I think this inflation issue is real. I don't think it's going away anytime soon. And I think anyone who's overly calm about it is making me nervous. And so the idea that it's a V-shaped recovery and Joe Biden deserves all the credit is complete nonsense. You know, I think as a YouTuber, we have one of the most powerful tools to really be able to tell what's going on in the economy. CPM's advertiser dollars, the amount of extra profits and extra cash that companies have to spend on advertising and marketing. If the economy is booming, ad rates go up? Well, ad rates have been going down for 2 years straight, and they're currently less than half of what they were during the bull market days of the Trump administration or during the stimulus money printing boom in 2020 and early 2021. Joe Biden's economic recovery is an economic mirage. It's nothing but propaganda. It's a lie. My view is that he is misleading the American public. Take his word that everything's fine at your own peril. I, on the other hand, I'm choosing a different path. I don't trust a single word that this friggin' clown says or any goon that works in his administration. And I'm going to keep operating with that strategy because so far, I've saved myself from a whole lot of financial pain. He wants to convince you that it's all over. Well, I don't think we've seen the downturn yet. Maybe I'm overly pessimistic. It doesn't really matter my perspective until the Fed flips and until I start seeing some healthy economic indicators. I'm not changing my perspective. And I'm not trusting JB. That's basically what I got, just a little rant on the economy and the constant perpetual lies coming out of this clown and cheat. And then some significant news. Biden administration proposes tightening of asylum rules to stem illegal migration. The Biden administration this week announced a proposal to the board would be migrants who meet either of the following criteria. 1. Those who did not seek asylum from another country while traveling to the United States, and 2. Who failed to provide advance notice of their plans to seek asylum. Under the proposal, border authorities would automatically assume a migrant to be ineligible for asylum if they enter the policy closely resembles a proposal from the Trump administration that would have rejected asylum status to applicants who did not seek it first in other countries along the route to the United States. The current proposal from the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security is currently awaiting the completion of a 30-day public comment period prior to its implementation. Biden to announce more sanctions on Russia after Putin suspends nuclear treaty. Joe Biden on Tuesday announced he plans to implement more sanctions this week on Russia. Just hours after Russian President Putin suspended a U.S. nuclear treaty. Biden made the announcement without noting any of the specifics. Quote, "Together, we made sure Russia is paying the price for its abuses," Biden prefaced. He continues, quote, "We continue to maintain the largest sanctions regime ever imposed on any country in history. And we are going to announce more sanctions this week together with our partners, and we will hold those accountable for those responsible for this war, and we will seek justice for the war crimes and crimes against humanity continuing to be committed by the Russians." The Biden administration has imposed approximately 1,500 new and 750 amended sanctions and export controls against Russia since the Ukrainian war began last year. According to the State Department, critics say the sanctions have caused the conflict to escalate and prevented Putin a way to end the struggle without impacting his domestic political standing. On Tuesday, just hours before Biden spoke, Putin announced the suspension of a 2011 nuclear pact named the New START Agreement that sought to limit Russian and American nuclear development. Quote, "I enforced it to announce today that Russia is suspending its participation in the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty." He said. It continues, quote, "The West uses Ukraine as a ram against Russia." Putin entered the agreement by also slamming the West for its so-called moral rot. Or quote, "spiritual catastrophe." House Republicans visit Kyiv. House Foreign Affairs Committee Chair Representative Michael McCaul led several Republican lawmakers on Tuesday to a trip to Ukraine where they expressed their support to President Vladimir Zelensky and conducted oversight of military equipment. Their meeting with Zelensky as well as other Ukrainian officials occurred in the capital. Zelensky laid out a wish list of more powerful military items. He said Ukraine needs for its war with Russia, according to a Foreign Affairs Committee spokesperson, Representative McCall. So the meeting with Zelensky was, quote, very productive. He states, quote, we talked primarily about what Zelensky needs or when it comes to winning this war. We have strong bipartisan support to give Ukraine everything it needs to win, McCall said, noting Zelensky would provide the Republicans with his list of desired items. Businessman Vivek Ramaswamy launches 2024 White House campaign. Anti-woke businessman the Vec Ramaswamy has formally launched his 2024 presidential campaign on Tuesday evening with a video laying out what he says is a national identity crisis facing the nation, and the need for a revival of American exceptionalism. Quote, we're in the middle of a national identity crisis today, he says in the video. He continues, quote, our nation is hungry for a cause, for purpose, for meaning. The things we used to fill that void like faith, patriotism, hard work and family have disappeared. Yet we cannot even answer the question of what it means to be an American in the year 2023. Today, the woke left preys on our vacuum that's created a new culture of fear in our country that has completely replaced our culture of free speech in America. Ramaswamy, who was just 37 years old, has had a lucrative business career in his early life, where he ran several investment firms before later writing a best-selling book, Woke Inc. Inside Corporate America's social justice scam that exposed leftist woke tendencies of major companies. Quote, if you ask me, the best measure of the health of American democracy is the percentage of people who actually feel safe to say what they actually think in public, he says in his rollout video. He continues, quote, right now we're doing abysmally. That's why today I'm announcing my run for President of the United States. This isn't just a political campaign. This is a cultural movement to create a new dream for the next generation of Americans. And this time around, it isn't just about money. It's about the unapologetic pursuit of excellence in our country. He ends the video by explaining that the ruling party in the United States is determined to divide Americans so that they can continue to, quote, accumulate more power for themselves. He states, quote, I have a dream that we can be one people again, that our best days are actually truly not in some cheesy politician kind of way, but actually ahead of us. I have a dream that we can be one people again, and that our best days are actually truly not in some cheesy politician kind of way, but actually ahead of us. Thanks for being here, folks. Give me your thoughts below and hit subscribe.